Okay, here we go. All right, now we're on the third paragraph of the Maimer Ki Yamet Tzedchem Eretz Mitzrayim. After that introduction, Hine, Mia now, from what we said before, Sheha Avodah Yetzias Mitzrayim, that the service of going out of Egypt, Shebakol Yom, every day, Hu Ba'ofen Naila, has to be higher every single day, all the time. And we're talking not even every day, we're talking even every hour, but constantly a person has to be striving. Like I said, Lubavitcher Rebbe said, they asked him if he was happy. He said, I'm happy, but I'm not satisfied. In other words, a person should always be, in Chabad they say, a sameach b'chelko baruchni, a person who is happy with his lot, he's pleased with his lot, spiritually is not a good thing. Spiritually, you always have to strive to have more love of the Creator, more love for the creation, more appreciation of other people, etc. Shebezman hagalut, that in the time of exile, hayotzia Mitzrayim, this going out of Egypt, hagbalos is mi Mitzrayim nalim yoter. This has to be higher miasher than hayotzia mi Mitzrayim, than going out of the limitations shayata that was bizman abayit, in the time of Beit HaMikdash. I mean, if we have to go out of Egypt every day, it doesn't mean we have to go out. You know, here we got an easy way to do it, right? Like there are people that are drug addicts, and that they become addicted, like to heroin or whatever, and then they go to a what is it called, rehab. They go to rehab and they get cleaned out, and then they go back to taking drugs. Why do they? First of all, some of them, they do it on purpose. They go back to the rehab because it's getting too expensive for them. They have to take too much every day. Every day they have to take more and more of this heroin or whatever it is, God forbid, in order to get a kick out of it. So they need more. So they go to rehab, and it costs money. It gets expensive. So they go to the rehab and they get out. Other people, they can go to the rehab, but they just inside. I mean, there was once a thing in Israel, I think maybe in America, they can get a person off addiction in just a couple of weeks, whatever it is, in blood. What do? They put a person to sleep, then they clean his blood. You clean a person's blood, and then physically he's not addicted anymore. Says no, they don't. I don't think they even do it anymore. Good, it worked. The person was free, he paid a lot of money, and he got out, and then he went back on it. Why? Because the addiction is not a physical thing. There's a certain small part of it that's physical, but the main part of it is her own personality. A person's personality, that he wants to be the ruler, he wants to be in charge. That's called being in Egypt, not letting the Creator of the universe be in charge. So every day, so we're not talking about in the nighttime you go back to Egypt and you do it, and then in the daytime you go out of Egypt again. That's not called going out of Egypt. It's called being in the same situation that you were before. You still have the same lack of love of God, love of the Torah, love of other people. What really is supposed to be? It's supposed to be that every day you realize a little bit more how to live more in God's world instead of your world. To have more love, like it says, you have to love God with all of your heart, with all of your soul, with all of your might. For a person to do this is a very deep and very intimate relationship that you have to have with God. So it says every day you have to go out. So if every day you have to go out, then that means that we must be on a pretty high level right now. We must be on a pretty high level. Every day the Jews have been going out of Egypt. It means that we have a more refined Egypt that we have to go out of now, even than the people that were back in the time of the Holy Temple. I mean, the Holy Temple in the end was destroyed because people, they had everything, but they didn't have themselves. Like we say, I said it 100 times, that Moses took the Jews out of Egypt, but the Mashiach will take the Egypt out of the Jews. Ubizman galut gufa, and so now we have a very high, fine level, every one of us, of going out of Egypt that we have to go out of. Ubizman galut gufa, and I'll give you maybe one example. Now there's the thing in the world that there's never been before, I don't think, and that is a total level of ignorance of what is God, what is Judaism, total ignorance of what it is. It's not even that people have, desires to go against God or whatever, like they did. and they worshipped idols and things like that. Now people worship idols. They do sins from pure ignorance. It's not that they have a desire to go against God, to go against the Torah. They don't even know what it's supposed to be. So in order to go out of this, it's a very fine, high level of, it's not even the personal, how do you say, egotism that does it. It's just total ignorance. It could be these people, as soon as they realize what God is, right, that they'll all of a sudden, well, this is, right, then automatically they'll say, well, I just have to serve the creator of the universe. And then to make these internal changes will be very, very easy, right? But now the problem is just our free will. Once a person is educated, just to use your free will to serve God at higher levels of this decision, is that's the time of exile now. Ubedoros the ikvasa the Mashiach. Now we are in the generation of what's called the heels of the Mashiach. Especially now, this last generation, the Rebbe stressed it many times. Our generation is the generation of the Mashiach. This is it, the last generation. Therefore, and what we have to go out of is much higher. Now in our generation, there's no lust for idolatry. Right? In the first temple, crazy idolatry. Now in our generation, there's not so much of a hatred between one another, hatred between people. People are just simply ignorant. They don't know. So we've gone out of Egypt. Says no. The Egypt we have to go out of is very, very fine. The essence, the deep essence of our ego, of our personality, of our power of choice. Right? To make that little choice every moment, I'm going to serve God or not, very, very deep. The nosef lezeh, in addition to this, shebakol yom v'yom, that every single day, mevorim, there is refined, od nitzutzos, more sparks, v'od nitzutzos, and more sparks, by Jewish people doing what they're supposed to do in the world, doing Torah, doing the commandments, etc. And in addition, like we said a lot of times before, any good thing that a person does is eternal. Bad things, mistakes, sins, they're temporary. Doesn't last long. Doesn't last. A person fixes up like you go to a movie, a terrible movie. Worst movie I have been to a movie. I don't think I've been in a movie in 50 years, but you go to a terrible movie, awful movie. The end is good. Ooh, this is good. This is a good movie. Ooh, I enjoyed it. You go to a good movie, wonderful action, and the end is terrible. What a disappointing movie. The end wrecks the whole entire thing, right? In other words, a little bit of good, if it's something that's good in the end, so that fixes up everything that's bad, right? And if a person does something that's really bad in the end, then it could show that everything that he did good and it really wasn't so good. Maybe he was just doing it to show off. If it was really good, then he would continue doing good. V'al yedei zeh, by means of this, mitkarvim yoter lebiat Mashiach. By means of this, fixing up the good things as it brings us closer to the coming of the Mashiach. But just like the Jews back then in Egypt, by means of their work and their hard efforts and their suffering that they suffered, is God sent Moshe, and Moshe took all the Jews out of Egypt. The same thing is now, by means of our suffering in Galus, as Hashem has already sent the Rebbe. He sent the Rebbe, and now the matter is just really doing what he says. And when will this be revealed? When will it be revealed to take us out of Egypt? Just like Moshe went up on Mount Sinai for 40 days and he was hidden. And it says Moshe was always also hidden in the house of Paro for a long time. And then he came out and it was revealed. And so it is also will be in our generation. But for sure, Mashiach is going to come. For sure, Mashiach is already here. But the problem is, what's going to bring him? Says the Rebbe, what's going to bring him is our work, our going out of Egypt. Our going out of our personal Egypt. This idea of going out of Egypt. Going out of any limitations and any restrictions to holiness. Bekal Yom Ubofen Yoter. It has to be higher and higher and higher. By means of going out of Egypt, biyamim achronim, in these last days before the coming of the Mashiach, shayatzia mimitzrayim, the going out of Egypt on these days, is gam mitzrayim hachinalim, the highest levels. Yizku b'korov mamish, then will come soon to the geula atida, to the future redemption, that then will be a yetzirah, will going out from all limitations and all boundaries. The Rebbe is going to explain. But one of the biggest boundaries we have in the world is fear. Fear. To the degree that all of Hasidut is based on not being afraid. The father of the Baal Shem Tov, who was the founder of the Hasidic movement, the Baal Shem Tov then was 5 years old, 3 years old. They saw different. His father passed away, took him to his deathbed before he passed away, and he said, just one thing, don't fear anything except for God. And since then, the Baal Shem Tov was not afraid of anything except for the creator of the universe. And it said he used to go into the jungle and the forest in the nighttime, and he wasn't afraid of the bears, and there's a whole lot of stories that are involved. But suffices to say that this is good advice for us, and it's advice for us. The advice for us is don't be afraid of anything except for the creator of the universe. And the Baal Shem Tov went out, there were bears, there were real bears. The Hasidim in the time of Russia, that they used to do crazy things for the sake of doing Torah and commandments and even praying in a minyan and helping another Jew and making a bris for someone, making kosher food. There used to be a shochet over here, Rabbi Raskin. I used to know him well. In fact, he was the mohel. He circumcised 2 of my children. That he used to, the tremendous self-sacrifice just to bring kosher meat for the Jews. If they would catch him with a knife, he said he had a pocket with a hole in it. He would take this knife with him, and if it was going to a bris, whatever, and if he sensed that someone was coming after him, he would let it fall. He would let it fall through his pocket, and he would keep walking so that it wouldn't be noticed. He said he lost tens and tens of knives. It wasn't easy to get a knife. And that way they risked their lives because they weren't afraid. I mean, they weren't stupid. I mean, they did what they could to protect themselves. But on the other hand, the things that they did, not to be afraid. We're going to see what the Rebbe says. Nowadays, it says the Rebbe that then when they were in Russia, they had this tremendous self-sacrifice. They weren't afraid. But now, when the Jews come to America and to France and to Israel, we see that they haven't got such big sacrifice anymore. Because now the challenges are much more refined. The things we have to not be afraid of, the things we have to the dangers that we have to ignore are much more imaginary, much more, how do you say, ethereal than they were in Egypt. We'll talk about that. Let's go. Let's explain this. The Gula Sida, that the revelation that's going to be in the future redemption will be mainly Al Yadei, by means of Avoda, the service, B'siyum Zman now, in our generation. That what the Jews did in all the generations with the holiday of Purim, and they were self-sacrificing in the holiday of Hanukkah, that they were self-sacrificing, and that the Jews were expelled from all these different places. Nevertheless, they held onto their Judaism. They refused in the time of the Inquisition, right, to bow down to the idolatry over there, to the church, and that they held on to their Judaism in the time of the Muslims were killing people. Jews died for the sake of. It says that's wonderful. That was 100%. That was great. But now, what we have to do now, this is the main thing. Our generation is the main self-sacrifice. Now we have the hardest, most difficult tests of all. What is our most difficult? We'll see. You'll see. The most difficult, how do you say, Egypt, boundaries, and the preventions and confusion that stops us from doing Torah, doing mitzvahs, and being happy is now. Now we can understand in the future redemption will be going out of all Meitzarim v'Hagbalos. Will be going out of all limitations and all boundaries. What does it mean, going out of all limitations and all boundaries? That everyone will be able to do what God wants. Usually you think, what's going out of boundaries? You just make parties all the time. There's just drugs and parties, and you're going out of all your limitations. That's exactly the opposite. That's called going into Egypt, enjoying it in Egypt. You go into Egypt and you enjoy it. Then when the Jews were out, they left Egypt. They wanted to go back. They wanted to go back to Egypt all the time. Let's go back with the Zacharat Dagan Misraim Chinam. Right? We used to eat fish over there. It was so wonderful in Egypt. They want to go back. That's called enjoying it in Egypt. That's not called freedom. That's the worst type of slavery. that you're a slave and you don't know that you're a slave, and you enjoy being a slave. That's even worse. Says the Rebbe, now the Mashiach will bring it that everyone will go out of all of their limitations. What does it mean? That you'll be really free to express your true potential. Your true, bring out all the blessings that are inside of you. To go out of the highest of highest limitations. It's like this. Like we said in the Maimer, to call olamos, that all the worlds, even the highest worlds, are called Mitzrayim, are called Egypt. The Yosem Bechinas Meitzar Vehelim, because they are concealment and hiddenness. Spirituality can sometimes be your biggest enemy. Biggest enemy. It says that there's a Gemara that says that Rabbi Akiva went with 3 other great men. They were all tremendous Kabbalists. And they went into what's called the Pardes. They went into the secrets of the Torah. The secrets of the Torah, of course, are the secrets of creation. And their minds went up to the highest possible levels of awareness that you could. And it said that there was Ben Azai and Ben Zoma and Elisha Ben Avua and Rabbi Akiva. And they all went into these tremendously high levels. And all of them, one went crazy, one became an apostate, one died. And only Rabbi Akiva, he said, he went in peace and he came out in peace. In other words, sometimes it can be that spirituality can be a big enemy. So says the Rebbe, that's what it is now. We have to go out of our limitations. That which all the worlds, the Rebbe is going to make a list over here. What worlds are we talking about? And Hasidut Chabad talks a lot about these Kabbalistic ideas and Kabbalistic worlds. And one reason is it's a double-edged sword. On one hand, to know that these worlds are the way to approach God. It's called the ladder, Jacob's ladder. By understanding that this world is just one very small dimension, and there's a dimension of reality above our world that encompasses our world, is then a person becomes spiritual. He becomes spiritual. He realizes, well, I won't get so excited about this world, about getting angry and getting the desires running after my every whim that I have, and getting afraid. And this world is just that. It's a little nothing. The infinite is the world above this world. It says, yeah, we should know that just like this world was a fake out in comparison to the world above it, the world above it, that's called the world of Yetzirah, it's called the world of angels, that's also a big fake in regarding the world that's above it. Oh, I guess I made a mistake. Okay, so now but I have the next world, that's called Bria. What you should know that even if you do reach this level, that's the level of tzaddikim. This is that level that's called Bria. That's also like a big bluff in regard to the world that's above it, which that's the world of Atzilut. That's pure godliness. Godliness. So that's pretty good. Pure godliness. Says, yeah, but you should know that pure, that level, that highest level, pure godliness, that's not God. That's just a creation, an emanation, I want to call it, of God. Where is God then? Where is the essence of God? In this world. Only in this physical world. This is what this physical world is where God. So you're supposed to appreciate all of them. In other words, don't get caught in one of these upper worlds. Don't get caught in. That's what all these other religions are, right? They get caught in some religious world. We're going to go to heaven. We're going to heaven, and heaven becomes their goal, and heaven becomes their comfort, and heaven becomes their this. Okay, that's called idolatry. Getting caught in heaven. We're talking about the essence of God. That's what Mashiach is going to bring. He's going to bring Mashiach, the essence of God. That's why it says, the Rambam brings down. It's a sentence from Jeremiah. We've talked about this before. The Mashiach is going to come and show all of the non-Jews, all the religions are based on lies. All of the religions. Sheker nachalu avotayim. The non-Jews will come from all over the world and they'll see that all the religions are just talking about these spiritual levels and things like that. And they're not connecting to the Creator at all, which they could. Why settle for second best? They'll drop all the religions. But we're in the same situation. A person can also get connected to some spiritual level inside of himself and forget about the truth. That's what the Rebbe is going to say. You have to go out of this. You have to go out of even the highest worlds for two reasons. Number one, sheheim b'hagbala, the upper worlds, all these upper worlds, Yetzira and Bria and Tzilus, they are all limitation. They're limited. They're creations. Mitzrayim, from the lashon of Meitzar and Gavul, the word Mitzrayim means limitation. Gam also mitzad zeh shitavutam, that their creation is by means of helam or, and also because how does God create these worlds? These worlds are created by concealing God's light. How does God create the worlds? By concealing His reality. You do it something like you go into a movie theater. I haven't been in a movie theater. I don't know, but it used to be. Maybe it still is. You go in a movie theater, and they turn out the lights, and then they shine one beam of light. But what if they don't turn off the lights? What if they don't turn off the lights? They shine. You can't see anything, right? Turn off the lights. People start screaming, "Turn off the lights! I can't see." It's the same thing as the world. God wanted to create the world, so He had to turn off the lights first. God's reality is too powerful. So God had to sort of dim down this reality that He has. That's called the tzimtzum. He had to dim down His reality, and then He could shoot a new beam of creation in. And that beam of creation, that's called the kav, and that's the beam that God uses to create all the worlds, this world. Ki yadua, like it says, a helim, v'tzimtzum rishon, that this concealment from what's called the first contraction, the first concealment, sha'al yado, by means of this, was made makom lamidas olamos. By means of this, there was a place where the worlds could be, where there could be limited worlds, right? Just like turned off the lights so that there could be a movie, you could see all the different things, all the Indians and the cowboys. That's it. Hu tzimtzum b'derech siluk. This is a concealment by means of removal. So to speak, God removed His light. God did not, in fact, remove His light because God and His light are infinite and they're everywhere. But God has this trick where He can hide over His light. Shenit alema, or that the light was concealed totally. In other words, God did this thing as though God was not there. The example is given in Chassidut. Like you go up to a person who's a big mathematician or something like that, and you ask him a question about a law in Judaism. So he's a big mathematician. He's thinking all these ideas. He said, they ask him a question, what's this law of Judaism? You know, where should I put my tefillin? Where should I this? So he's in the middle of this big mathematical problem, and he says, tefillin, just one second. What does he do? He removes his mind from the mathematics, removes his mind totally, doesn't think about them at all. He said, now what question did you ask me? Where should I put on the tefillin? Where? Let me see your tefillin. Let's see, is the knot okay? What happened to all these ideas that he had in mathematics? Where are they? He says they're still there, but he removed his attention from them. And because he removed his attention, so they're still there, but in the same way, God's oneness is infinite. We have no comprehension of what it is. It's reality. It's above time. Time is just a creation. So we have no idea what it is. In order for God to create a world where we think we do have an idea of something, at least we can comprehend something. Even though what we're comprehending is not reality, but it's something like reality. And so God has to remove, so to speak, his mind, just like the mathematician removes his mind. He removes, so to speak, his energy from his infiniteness so that he can shine through finiteness. That's the way it's explained. So it's the same thing like in the movie theater. What happens? First of all the lights come off, and then there shines one light that can be articulated. That there's all of a sudden it shines through different colors and this. That's called the kav. Let's see. Bedugmat Mitzrayim, this that God can remove or can conceal his reality in order to make this world, which is a secondary, a tertiary, whatever you want to call it, reality, as Bedugmas Mitzrayim del Umatzeh. This is something like Egypt. And Shehu Helen Vehester, this is like what it was in Egypt. What was in Egypt? The Jewish people who are supposed to advertise that there's a creator in the world, they were slaves in Egypt. They were slaves. They were helping the Egyptians out. And they even got to the point where they sort of enjoyed it a little bit. I mean, that's what they were. That's why they wanted to go back when they left. And they had slave mentality. What were the Egyptians? The Egyptians were amazingly spiritual people. Amazingly spiritual people. And they had it down to an amazing art where they could use it, and they conquered the world. It says they conquered the whole world with the Egyptian. And with their magic and their powers. V'yesh lomar shezehu ma shemamshich b'maimer ba'olam yesh gimel inyanim. That in the world, this idea of world, God created the worlds, right? We say that God created the worlds, all of the worlds. He created them 7 days. 7 days. God created the world 7 days, 24-hour periods, because this whole idea of 24 hours is also a creation. Why 24 hours? Right? God just set the sun spinning around over there and it went around. Said, oh, look at this. Let's divide it into 24. So 24, this number 24 is also a Kabbalistic idea. It's based on, there's a book called Sefer Yetzirah. In any case, God created the world. The word for world in Hebrew is olam. The word olam has 3 connotations. Olam kapeshuto, world, which shows on place and time. Then there is olam from language of helem, ha'elem, concealment, and olam from the language of elem, powerful. Shepirushu na'arot v'koach, youth and power. Umovo'era kesher, what is the connection between these 3? World, world and concealment and power. Sha'helem v'hester the olam, that the concealment and the hiding of the world, that the world conceals over the creator, right? In this world, you don't see any creator. There's giant scientists, genius scientists, and they are 100% sure, well, not 100% sure, but let's say 99.9% sure that there's no such thing as God. They won't admit that 1% or that 1.001% that they're not 100% sure, but there's no God. They looked in telescopes, they looked in microscopes, they looked in subatomic particles, and they looked in whatever is type of microscopes, telescopes that can look out into 1 billion miles, 1 trillion miles, and there's no God. They didn't see any God. And they're 100% sure, no doubt about it. They asked psychiatrists, they asked sociologists, they asked whatever it is, mathematicians. Everybody will back them up. No such thing as God. Why? Because that's the way God made the world. God made the world to conceal. Hu betochef gadol, and it is elim, powerful. The world is screaming out to us. There's no such thing as God. There's no judge. There's no justice. There's no purpose. There's no goal. There's no cause. There's no creator. It just is. It just goes, right? There's just the world just goes on. And remember, I don't advise anybody to do it. But if you ever read any of these French philosophers, I learned philosophy in university, so I learned these books. I mean, these guys are like 100,000% sure. Not only is there no God, but there's also no meaning, and there's no purpose, and there's no goal, and everything just flows along, and you just have to make some sort of order out of it in order to exist, etc. Good. What's the advantage of saying that there is God? Why I say that there is? Why they say there isn't? There is because there is. We're living with a reality. There is God. It's like telling a person who's a drug addict, what's the advantage of stopping taking drugs? I enjoy myself. What's the point? The problem is, like I said, I have to take more. Give me enough money. I'll buy drugs all the time. It'll be spaced out, right? All the time. What are you going to tell a person like that? What can I say? What can I say? You're missing reality. You're missing reality. You're missing a world with challenges overcome. No, I don't want challenges. I just want, just leave me alone. V'yesh lomar dezeh shemevi kan lo rak apirish the olam. This is not talking about world. Kepeshuto. Elagam apirusho the olam means helem. And lashon elem, that it's also concealment. The word world means not only the physical world with time and space, but also that the world conceals over something, and also that it does it in the most powerful way. Elim hu ki olam kapeshuto, the simple word for meaning, for world, makom, zman, his limitation, hu bir rak al zeh she'olamotem mitzarim milashen mitzar gavu. The word world implies that the world is a concealment, halem. It just conceals, it's limited. The word world itself automatically implies limitation, but not that it's concealed anything. Maybe the world is not, it just happens to be limited. If it wasn't limited, you couldn't have sciences. You have science, you couldn't do anything, you couldn't build anything. There was no laws, there's laws. The world is laws, time, space. But the Rebbe wants to explain also that not only is the world limited, time is limited, space is limited. That's what world is. But also, she'olamot, that the worlds, va'aju b'dugmat Helam, Hester, Mitzrayim, until the whole world is a big Egypt. The whole world is a big Mitzrayim. Hugam Mevi brings, the previous Rebbe brings in his mimer, that's what this mimer is explaining. The olam is from Lashon Helam. It's also from concealment, and also from Lashon Elam, and also power. That the power of this world is to conceal and to hide over godliness. It is very, very strong, very powerful. To the degree it's powerful, then the first of the 10 commandments, when God is declaring who he is and who is giving these commandments, it doesn't say, I am God that created the heavens and the earth. I am God that enlivens everything. I am God that makes the sun and the moon. That's pretty impressive. It says, no, the first of the 10 commandments is, I am God that took you out of Egypt. Because God creates Egypt, and Egypt is a godly creation, and he gave it tremendous power. And he gave it tremendous power to hide over the truth. Why God did a thing like that? That's the whole story of the creation. God created a world. The world seems to be false. The world, seems to be true, and it's not. It's a big lie. And God put Adam into the world in order to transform the world to a beautiful place. All the diversity and the variety and the harmony that you could make from this world cannot be made in the upper worlds, especially with free choice. God put Adam here, but Adam didn't do the job. That's the whole story of the Bible. And now here, why God did it, I'd ask God. I don't know, but he knows what he's doing. God knows what he's doing. He knows better than me. Like they say that there were 3 rabbis that were walking together. One of them was the first Rabbi of Chabad. The other one was Rabbi, this is like 300 years ago, 250 years ago. And another one was the Rebbe Levi, and the third one, I don't remember who it was. And they were talking, and they said, the subject was, what would you do if you were God? So one of them says, if I was God, I would make it that there was no trouble for the Jewish people at all. No trouble. And the other one said, what would you do if there was, said, if I was God, I would make it that the Mashiach was already here and everything was. And the Rebbe, the first Rebbe of Chabad, Alter Rebbe, said, if I was God, I would do exactly what God is doing. In other words, God knows better than me, and he knows better than you. He knows what he's doing. Right? So that God made this world, he made it very powerful, very strong, to the degree that God taking us out of Egypt was an amazing accomplishment for God. I am God that took you out of Egypt. So this idea of going out of Egypt is a very, very, almost impossible task. But we know that that's what God wants. And therefore, God helps us. In fact, it is an impossible task. But because God helps us, is we can do it easily. And we just have to make our minds up. And that's what the idea of this mimer is, that we should make our minds up to go out of all limitations in a happy way, as we'll talk about more, God willing, tomorrow.